Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, the legal fight involving a local Navy SEAL. Eddie Gallagher goes before a military judge to get his war crimes case dismissed. And new attention on Congressman Duncan Hunter's support of Gallagher, the reaction to Hunter's comments on civilian casualties in combat.
But, you know, the real question is how many fires are we going to get this year? And all we can do right now at this point is to continue to prepare and ask the public to prepare with us.
After a wet winter and spring, CAL FIRE talks with KPBS about this summer's fire risk.
I really want them to understand that teamwork goes a long way, being honest, being disciplined, and just taking care of the things you need to take care of in life.
And how a former Charger is coaching the next generation of football stars in City Heights. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening. It's Thursday, May 30th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Susan Murphy. A local Navy SEAL fighting charges of war crimes wants his case dismissed. Eddie Gallagher's lawyers say their communications were illegally tracked. KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh was at today's hearing. He's at Naval Base San Diego with an update. Steve?
Well, that's right, Susan. And in fact, the case is still going on behind this door here in front of the court. So as we know, Eddie Gallagher is charged with killing a wounded teenage ISIS fighter in his custody and also killing two other people with a sniper rifle. Actually, there were two SEALs in court today, including Gallagher, Lieutenant Jake Portier, who is his commanding officer. He's charged with allowing a re-enlistment ceremony over a dead body and then covering it up. The reason why we're here today is that the Gallagher trial has been delayed over allegations of spying, or what the defense is calling spying. We know that the prosecutors place tracking devices on emails sent to defense attorneys and reporter Carl Perrine with Navy Times. We found out today that there was an actual criminal investigation underway. NCIS agents are involved. Also involved is the U.S. Attorney's Office. Earlier today, we found out that the defense withdrew a motion to have the judge step down in this case, though going on behind us, we're trying to find out whether or not prosecutors will be forced to step down because of the spying allegations, or whether or not the case could be tossed out entirely. While all this is going on, we've seen a tremendous amount of publicity in this case, as we have for months now. Gallagher's biggest supporter, Duncan Hunter, has been in the news for making allegations saying that he did many of the same sorts of things while he was also in the Marines. We reached out to Duncan Hunter's office and we requested a statement from him. And Hunter has said that his office has said that these two situations are different situations, but based on the naval investigation, has concluded the fair treatment of their questionable conduct throughout this case. But anyway, we're waiting here to find out what's going on today in the Gallagher case. If everything goes forward, June 10th is when the trial is set to begin. Steve Walsh, live here at Naval Base San Diego.
Thank you, Steve. That statement from Congressman Duncan Hunter's office is in response to comments he made that surfaced in the last week. KPBS reporter Lynn Walsh tells us how the Marine Corps is responding.
Because Eddie did one bad thing that I'm guilty of too. Taking a picture with the body and saying something stupid, and then texting that.
Congressman Duncan Hunter defended the actions of Navy SEAL Edward Gallagher at a town hall in Ramona on Saturday by saying he and a lot of his military peers have posed in photos with people they killed. Hunter is a former Marine artillery officer and the first combat veteran from Iraq and Afghanistan to serve in Congress.
I take pictures just like that when I was overseas. Didn't text them to anybody, didn't put them on Facebook or Instagram. But a lot of my peers, a lot of us have done the exact same thing.
In an interview on the podcast Zero Blog 30 released this week, Hunter expands on his time in the military, saying he probably killed hundreds of civilians while in combat in Fallujah.
I was an artillery officer, and we fired hundreds of rounds into Fallujah.
Right.
Killed probably hundreds of civilians, if not scores, if not hundreds, of civilians, probably killed women and children, if there were any left in the city when we invaded. So do I get judged too?
In a statement, the Marine Corps says it's aware of the congressman's comments, but it's too early to speculate on any possible consequences. The statement says, quote, if mistreatment of the dead were committed intentionally, it could be considered a violation of the law of war. Lynn Walsh, KPBS News.
According to the Marine Corps, other U.S. service members have been punished for posing in photos with dead bodies. The statute of limitations to charge someone is 5 years. The county ordered another closure of Imperial Beach today due to sewage runoff. The ongoing issue drew some pointed comments from Mayor Serge Dedina in an interview with KPBS Midday Edition. Mayor Dedina criticized the county and the city of Coronado for not joining in a federal lawsuit. Imperial Beach and others are trying to force the federal government to do more to fix the problem.
The county needs to step up to the plate. The county has done almost nothing to help us. We need beach testing full time. And Coronado, again, a city laden with millionaires with millions of dollars in the bank, tons of money, has done almost nothing to help us. And their beaches are almost as polluted as ours. So it's not fair that Imperial Beach is left holding the bag.
The San Diego Union Tribune reports comments could cost Imperial Beach up to $50,000. The city of Coronado has an agreement that reimburses Imperial Beach on some legal costs, but includes a non-disparagement agreement. Coronado city officials declined to respond to Dedina's comments. KPBS media partner iNewsSource says unethical research was included in an academic paper published this month. It's the latest in a series of reports from the iNewsSource going back to last year on the local VA, sick veterans, and the doctor who has since left San Diego. Earlier, I spoke with senior investigative reporter Brad Racino about these new developments. Brad, you've been reporting on this study for months. Remind us what it's about and who's working on it.
So this is a massive federally funded research study that is taking place among 11 different institutions around the world. Here in San Diego, the San Diego VA is a part of it. And what these researchers are doing is they're collecting blood and stool and liver biopsies from patients who are suffering from alcoholic hepatitis or liver disease. The purpose of this is so researchers can identify and create new treatments for the disease. And I like to think of the study as like a three-layer cake. Basically, the first layer is all these institutions around the world. They're then sending all of these samples to a biorepository bank in Philadelphia, or I'm sorry, in Pittsburgh. And from there, they're being sent out to 3 different institutions in the country. Those are at Columbia, North Carolina, and here at UCSD for physician researchers to analyze these data.
And something went wrong here in San Diego. Tell us about that.
Yeah, something went pretty wrong. About in 2013, a couple whistleblowers at UCSD and the VA alerted authorities that they thought there were serious problems with the study and the way that these liver biopsies were being taken from alcoholic veterans here. They alleged that these samples were being taken under the guise of they were needed like treatments, but really these veterans weren't being told that these samples were being taken for research. They also alleged a number of other problems. Nothing was done for years until this went up the chain to the feds, which started an investigation in 2016, 2017, and that's led to where we are today.
And now your news story says, despite all that, the doctors have used those samples in a research article. Is that wrong?
It's something you're definitely not supposed to do. We spoke to a couple medical ethicists and experts who said if you have data that is from an unethical study, you cannot publish that data. The main purpose being that you don't want to incentivize bad researchers down the line to say, well, hey, they got away with it, I can use this data as well. So they published an article on Digestive Diseases and Sciences, which is an academic journal, just a couple weeks ago. And we've reached out to the journal. They're not commenting on it, but that's where we are now.
So what do doctors have to say about this?
We reached out to a lot of people. So we reached out to the lead researcher in Pittsburgh, Ramon Vitaler, who told us back in February that all of these samples taken from the San Diego VA were sequestered, never to be used in any study ever again because he didn't want to have to retract a paper. He has not spoken to us since. We reached out to Dr. Bernd Schnabel, who's one of the researchers on the San Diego study. He's at UCSD in the VA. He will not comment. We reached out to Dr. Samuel Ho, who was also at the VA. He left for Dubai last year. He will not comment. UCSD said that they are investigating this but won't offer a further comment. And the VA, interestingly enough, told us just yesterday that they don't see a problem with using these samples. They have no problem with it at all. So they're kind of the outlier in all of this.
Okay, and to wrap up, this story is part of a larger series you've been working on for months called Risky Research. Tell us about this project.
So my colleague Joe Castellano and I have been working on this since about November, and it's really trying to examine the world, the universe of human medical research, at least in the U.S., and the different flaws in the system meant to protect patients. There are millions and millions of people every year who enroll in these studies, and we're looking at the shortcomings in the systems meant to protect them.
Okay, Brad Racino, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You can read the full story at inewsource.org. iNewsSource is an independently funded nonprofit partner of KPBS. A new $35 million project led by a San Diego researcher will target deadly viruses. I recently talked with the doctor leading this effort about the urgency for new treatments. La Jolla Institute for Immunology professor Erica Ullman-Sapphire is leading a 5-year global effort to find treatments for viral threats, including Ebola, Lassa, and mosquito-borne diseases.
This is the Viral Immunotherapeutic Consortium. And so I founded this in 2013 when it became clear that what we understood by studying things in test tubes wasn't adequately predicting what would protect living things. And we want to protect people from these viruses. So this is what we need to understand.
Ullman-Sapphire's consortium is made up of 200 researchers from 19 institutes across the globe. She says they'll study antibodies and the immune system's ability to fight viral pathogens and destroy infected cells.
And so that's where we're going now, is to not only figure out how to target these viruses, but how to enlist the power of your own immune system to clear those infections from the cell. And we think that's critically important because there are a lot of things in common there with every other virus you're infected with, and also cancer and everything else your immune system fights.
Ullman-Sapphire says the resurgence of the Ebola and Lassa viruses and the growing threat of mosquito-borne diseases, also called alpha viruses, has increased the global urgency for treatments.
Well, the Ebola outbreak isn't stopping. It's up to 1,900 cases now. And when every clinic is attacked, and given the amount of unrest and distrust in the area, that's going to continue. But Lassa infects hundreds of thousands of people every year. And these alpha viruses are spread by mosquitoes, with millions susceptible. So because it's a mosquito-borne virus, really no one's safe.
She says the $35 million grant from the National Institutes of Health will help speed the discovery of therapies and clinical trials. In addition to leading the overall 5-year study, Erica Ullman-Sapphire will direct the Ebola project. She's planning a trip to Africa to study the deadly virus this summer.
I'm William Brangham. Tonight on the NewsHour, the fight over abortion in Missouri. Will the state's only clinic be allowed to continue providing the service? Coming up at 7, right after Evening Edition on KPBS.
A string of fires Wednesday in East County has local firefighters on alert. Wildfire season officially starts Saturday, but it's becoming a year-round threat. Tonight, Cal Matters tells us what can be done to prevent major fires. But first, KPBS reporter John Carroll on the local risk.
Lush green hillsides, one of the biggest super blooms seen in years, all thanks to a very wet winter. But as all that growth dries up, the stage is set for what could be an explosive fire season.
We see the fuel right now. It's been out there for quite a while, and what it's doing in a lot of parts of the county is it's still changing over from green to brown. Essentially, it's still dying.
Sanchez says that process can happen pretty quickly.
But we don't let our guard down. It doesn't take very much, very many days of elevated temperatures and low humidities to turn those burning conditions around.
In 2003, 2007, and in 2014, San Diego County saw devastating, deadly wildfires that burned thousands of homes. Sanchez says important lessons were learned.
Everybody across the board recognizes that we have to work together because a fire for one is a fire for everybody, and it could potentially affect our neighbors if we're not cooperating at a high level.
Sanchez says from north to south, California is seeing the effects of climate change when it comes to wildfires. As a consequence, he says the concept of a fire season is outdated.
It's hard to argue with the numbers and see that the burning conditions are showing up earlier in the year and sticking around longer.
They got it connected, you're good.
Sanchez says CAL FIRE is as ready as it can be to deal with whatever Mother Nature has in store for us in the months to come. But all of us can help too. Remember to clear defensible space around your home. And never forget that one little spark can quickly grow into a devastating inferno. John Carroll, KPBS News.
State of emergency.
State of emergency.
The governor has declared a state of emergency ahead of the upcoming fire season.
Yes, there are a lot of fires in California, and yes, they are costly. Unfortunately, they can also be deadly.
But we must stand with victims and learn from mistakes.
But before there's a spark, a downed power line, or a freak accident, decades of laws, policies, and actions, and sometimes inaction, set the course for how catastrophic the state's wildfires will be. So what will it take to fireproof California, and are we willing to do it? Get out your checkbook and your credit cards and prepare yourself for the sight of firefighters setting forest fires and crews cutting down millions of trees across California, because that's what it's going to take. We have to change the way we think about fire, seeing it not as a destructive force, but as a tool, sort of like fighting fire with fire. And that means setting controlled burns. These are carefully managed small fires that allow foresters to herd flames where they want to remove nature's fuels. We all also need to accept the smoke and risks that come with prescribed fires. Here's a final thought. The all-out tree culling will produce an enormous amount of lumber in a state that already has a timber industry that's a skeleton of its former self. Those small diameter trees have very little commercial appeal. What's the best guarantee to safeguard homes from being engulfed by forest fires? How about not building subdivisions in the middle of forests to begin with? That'll be a tough nut to crack. California could adopt Australia's approach. That teaches rural homeowners to fireproof their homes and when fire does come, to defend their property on their own. It's been very effective in Australia, but it's not likely to go over well in California, where taxpayers tend to expect firefighters at the bottom of their driveways. Forested mountainsides are one of California's iconic landscapes, enticing some people to pay a premium to live among beautiful stands of trees. When those homeowners don't remove trees, however, it becomes a problem. It's sometimes difficult to understand how cutting trees can make a forest more healthy, and harder to take when safety measures mean eliminating the aesthetic beauty. A further tension falls on state officials who restrict where and how to build, mandating that new homes meet fireproofing standards. Yes, those building codes are effective, but meeting them is costly. Officials estimate that 1 in 10 California fires are caused by electric utility equipment. Do we really want to make hundreds of thousands of miles of transmission lines more fire secure? We have to bury them in the ground. That's a great idea in theory, which is where that notion is likely to remain. Relocating power lines is hugely expensive and not always practical. Still, the state is requiring California's big utilities to prepare comprehensive fire mitigation plans. Among their strategies, clear trees and brush away from transmission lines and swap out wooden power poles for metal ones. All that work will come at a price to customers. Southern California Edison estimates making its equipment more fire resistant will cost hundreds of millions of dollars, and that's just one utility company. What does California's tech-savvy new governor have in mind to attack the problem? Throw the future at it. Governor Gavin Newsom proposes deploying a network of remote cameras to detect backcountry fires while they are still small and manageable. He wants weather stations and sophisticated monitoring during times of high fire risk, which can provide officials early warning. Like everything else, it comes at a cost. But when it comes to fire prevention, you get what you pay for.
As we head through the rest of tonight, we're still under the influence of an upper-level trough that is bringing a cooler feel into the southwest as a whole. And as we look at the previous hours on the satellite and radar, clouds and some scattered shower and rain activity have been seen across California as well as into Nevada and portions of northern Arizona. But we really haven't been talking about too much in the way of wet weather here in San Diego. And in fact, tonight, just increasing clouds with a low of 59. Cooling down into the upper 50s as well for Oceanside with those coastal clouds continuing to be available to us. We'll continue to see those clouds try to move their way into the valley as we move into your Friday morning. But as you creep really further inland, going to be difficult to get some of that cloud coverage into Mount Laguna, where we're cooling down to 49 and a low 67 in Borrego Springs. Tomorrow, it's not a bad forecast. Morning low clouds available at the coast. We will be tracking out a low pressure system that will continue to dive its way to the south. Now, this low going to bring rainy and some thunderstorm conditions in towards Nevada, as well as portions of the Sierras, but we're not going to be talking about too much in the way of wet weather. What we will notice as that low continues to drop further to the south is a stronger onshore flow coming our way for the weekend. A high of 69 for Oceanside, 68 in San Diego, and topping off in the upper 90s for Borrego Springs. Mount Laguna looking at a high of 65 for your Friday. The weekend comes along and it is pretty dry across California as a whole. Wet conditions will going to be noticeable into the center U.S. as well as out towards the east. But here at the coast, your temperatures in the upper 60s for the next several days. Low cloud Saturday and Sunday due to that onshore flow, and then Monday some sun returning. And we're going to see that trend as well inland. Low clouds, onshore flow, allowing for clouds to fill inland areas, topping off in the lower 70s Saturday. Inland communities, and if you're out towards the deserts, we remain in the 90s, but we're slightly cooler in the lower 90s Saturday and Sunday. Sunshine will continue to thrive for Monday and Tuesday, and noticing we're trying to near 100 with a high of 98 forecasted for Tuesday. And out towards the mountains, you're looking at your highs in the 60s, feeling a bit cool for the weekend due to that onshore flow also impacting the forecast. And Tuesday, well, that is where we're drier and looking at sunshine. Reporting for KPBS News, I'm your meteorologist, Dodgy Swad. Back to you.
It's a big night for sports as the NBA Finals tip off. On the gridiron, San Diego has its own group of champions. Priya Sridhar has the story of the Balboa Raiders, who have been playing in City Heights for more than 50 years.
Now ready, begin. 1, 2, 3.
It's a Tuesday afternoon, and dozens of 10 and 11-year-olds are sprawled out on the football field behind Clark Middle School.
1, 2, 3, 1.
They're the Balboa Raiders, an American youth football team that started in City Heights.
The first year I played football, I played lineman, and then when I came on this team, they put me as running back.
Isaiah Grant has been one of the stars of the team since he was 5 years old.
And I showed them how much talent I had, and then stayed at running back.
Most of these kids have been playing together for 6 years. The athletes practice 2 to 3 times a week for 8 months a year. It's a lot of work, but it's also taught them a lot.
It's just the teamwork, the ethic, the hard work we put in, the hard work the coaches put in us, the discipline.
Grant says growing up with his teammates made them family.
And we call each other brothers.
Back up behind the cone, shuffling. Drop your butt, stay square.
And at the head of that family is Coach Stephen Cooper, whose son is also on the team.
I really want them to understand that teamwork goes a long way. Being honest, being disciplined, and just taking care of the things you need to take care of in life.
But Cooper isn't your average parent on the sidelines. He has some credentials to back up his coaching title. He played in the NFL for 8 years, a career spent right here in San Diego with the Chargers.
Let's go, go!
Although he lives in Scripps Ranch, he brought his son to the Balboa Raiders because he wanted him to play football in City Heights.
The reason why I wanted my son to play here because I know it's a blue-collar mentality here. There's a lot of hard working class people here, and I know there's a lot of grind and grit here that I wanted my son to be a part of and to experience.
When the other parents asked Cooper to coach, he says it was perfect timing.
This is the first thing I experienced after I was done playing, so it was a blessing in disguise because I was in a bad mental place. These kids show me a lot about work ethic, attitude, persevering, and just staying on course because that's what they're trying to do, and that's what we implement into them, so we got to lead by example.
In out.
Hey. His son Kai says that's exactly what he's learned since he joined the team.
We have teamwork together, we work hard, and we play as a team.
Coach Cooper also checks up on the team's report cards and even makes appearances at their schools if they don't stay on track. 10-year-old Nathaniel Carter says he's learned more than just how to run and throw.
My coach, he tells us how to be respectful to adults and say thank you and please and have good manners and try hard to be the best you as you can and try to get your grades up and don't hang around the bad people.
Last season, after playing together for 6 years, the Raiders finished the regular season undefeated with 12 wins. They went on to win the regional championships in Arizona and then the national championships in Florida. Star player Isaiah Grant says the title was unexpected.
I was very surprised because, like, the first 2 games we only scored six points out of the first 2, but then the last game we just had to come out hard and we showed them we gave it all we got on the field.
11-year-old Rayshawn Hardiman says some of the Raiders' competitors have underestimated them.
Well, since most of us are from City Heights, other teams think that we're not as good. It taught me to prove them wrong and try super hard in the games.
Isaiah Grant agrees. He says City Heights has taught him to work hard.
It means that, like, people, they come from nothing to something. When they it's like go big or go home for people.
At the end of practice, the Raiders gear up for the start of their next season in August. Now they have big expectations to meet.
You guys set a platform for yourself, and you guys got an X on your back now. Okay, you guys are the AYF national champs from last year, and people want to knock you off. Now it comes down to work ethic, just like everyday life, whether it's waking up in the morning, making your bed, brushing your teeth, whatever it is. Do you guys understand?
Yes, Coach. Coach Cooper's son Kai thinks they have what it takes to bring home the championship to City Heights once again.
It's not easy, because if you work hard, it will prosper in your life.
Priya Sridhar, KPBS News.
And this just into our newsroom. Navy SEAL Eddie Gallagher has been released pending his trial. We'll have more updates on air and online at kpbs.org. Thank you for joining us. Have a great evening.